Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. I am your co-host here, Philip, and in today's episode, we are going to be continuing our little mini-series on the latest installment of the Max show, House of the Dragon. Yes, we are going to continue our series on House of the Dragon Season 2. Obviously, where we last left off, we just covered episode 5 of Season 2 of House of the Dragon. And after a little bit of a hiatus, we are going to continue that series today by talking about episode 6 and eventually reaching the finale of season 2. So at the time of recording this, obviously the show has been wrapped up for probably about a good week or two. I apologize for the lack of output, when it has come to the podcast. To be honest, it's been a mixture of dealing with some personal things off camera, and then also preparing for a decent transition. To make a long story short, I will be heading back up to New York for a little bit to take care of some things and to handle some business. So I've been preparing for my trip back up to New York. So I've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes, besides just dealing with some personal issues and whatnot. But other than that, that is the big announcement. So I am going to try to put out as many episodes as I can before I leave, just so you guys have some content to watch for the next couple of weeks. So again, I apologize for the hiatus, and the lack of content. To be honest, I just really wasn't up to recording too much, and I had some things come up. So unfortunately, I just couldn't get to my computer to put out an episode for you guys. But I mean, you guys obviously smashed that last House of the Dragon review that I put out for you guys. And like I said, I'm going to do my best to continue this little mini series until it is finished. And obviously, we reach the finale of season 2. Also, I plan on putting out a little short review and discussion about the latest installment of the Alien franchise, Alien Romulus. I just went to go see that the other day with a couple of friends, and it was absolutely fantastic. So I've been on a little bit of an Alien kick, so I cannot wait to talk to you guys about that. Um, excuse me. But yeah, so just be on the lookout for some content. I will probably release this episode that I'm recording as of now on Tuesday this week. So I'll probably have it slated to come out later this week, just so you guys have an episode to watch this week. And then, like I said, I'll pre-list a couple of different recordings, for you guys to watch and to have to, entertain yourselves for the next couple of weeks until I get settled back in New York. And then, we will continue, podcasting as normal. And who knows, because me and my brother will be in the same state, maybe we can finally get back together and do an episode in person. But we will cross that bridge when it comes to it. So obviously, just kind of doing a daily check-in. I'm doing pretty okay. I'm hanging in there. Like I said, there's been some stuff going on behind the scenes that I'm trying to take care of. And yeah, it's just I'm taking it day by day, and kind of going from there. So just fingers crossed that everything works out, the way I hope it does, and that it's supposed to be. But other than that, nothing else has really been going on too much. Like I said, just kind of prepping for my trip back up to New York. Obviously, if you notice the surroundings, I'm actually currently out by my dad's house, just kind of spending some time with him and family before I head back up to New York. So I'm currently in the spare bedroom, so that's why my surroundings look all bare and everything. And hopefully, all the audio and video is coming in pretty good here because I'm currently using his computer. So I've actually never used a Mac computer before, so we'll see how this goes. But yeah, without further ado, this is probably going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. Just try to keep things brief. Like I said, I want to get out a couple of episodes. So I'm going to do the best that I can with that. But yeah, let's get into episode 6. So episode 6 was titled "The Smallfolk." Obviously, there was a huge importance on the small folk of King's Landing in this episode, and I think I would give it a solid 10 out of 10. I know I've been pretty biased, and I've given almost every episode a 9 or a 10 out of 10, but I really do think that this season has been really good. I think it's setting up some great plot points, and it's setting up everything perfectly for season 3, which will I believe, be released in 2026. So we do have a little bit of a hiatus when it comes to House of the Dragon, but we also have another Game of Thrones project coming out in 2025 called, I believe, The Hedge Knight, centered around the famous Sir Duncan the Tall. So if you haven't read that book, I haven't read that book personally. I hear it's fantastic, but it basically just kind of focuses upon this knight called Sir Duncan the Tall. And he has a little squire called Egg, who is actually secretly a Targaryen, but he doesn't know that. And it kind of follows the two of them on their adventures, and kind of encompasses the larger world of Game of Thrones and Westeros, and just some important timelines in Targaryen history. So at least we have some content to watch next year, which will be pretty exciting. But for now, let's jump into our conversation. So, like I said, there was a very heavy importance on the small folk in this episode. Obviously, we've seen throughout the season that when it comes to King's Landing, the small folk are suffering. Obviously, the blockade of the Valarian fleet is causing food and goods and services to not come into the port, which is causing people to starve. Obviously, provisions and everything are becoming more scarce. People are price gouging. They're stealing. It's costing an arm and a leg just for a piece of chicken. So the folks of King's Landing are starting to become restless, and we've seen in past episodes that they are starting to leave the city because they want to explore obviously options elsewhere. So we really see the Green Council, and more specifically, King Aegon II, as well as the Prince Regent, Aemon Targaryen, excuse me, try to figure out ways to deal with this. Obviously, we don't see that they're handling it pretty well, as Prince Aemon declares to have the gates of the cities closed, and basically prohibit people from leaving the city. You could see this as more of like a defense mechanism. Um, so he kind of has a buffer to kind of prevent Rhaenyra and Team Black from, besieging or, taking over King's Landing, because obviously they don't want to hurt the civilian population. So you can see it more as like a human shield type tactic, or you can kind of see it as like some tough love and, somehow keeping them in the city. He's going to try to win their love over. But I mean, obviously, we'll see this boil up later in the episode. But yeah, there is a very heavy importance on the small folk in this episode. So when we look at Team Green, again, bear with me as I'm trying to remember, a couple weeks back, what exactly happened. We're seeing the rule of the Prince Regent Aemon Targaryen. Obviously, Aegon II is still recovering from the Battle of Rook's Rest, and has been bedridden ever since. So we see that he is currently recovering, and trying to gather his strength. So we see in his stead that Prince Aemon was made regent, and is ruling in his stead. So we see that I believe the episode opens up on a green small council meeting, as they're just trying to figure out what their position and their standing is. So we see that the Master of Ships, Jason Lannister, his brother, I'm sorry, not Jason, Tywin Lannister, his brother Jason Lannister is currently marching towards the Riverlands, and he's being held up because he refuses to march any further unless he has like the guaranteed protection of a dragon. So obviously, Prince Aemon is pretty upset about that. And we see that he's very kind of like short-tempered when it comes to his rule and his demeanor so far, when it comes to ruling in his stead. So we see, after the small council meeting concludes, obviously we see his mother, the Dowager Queen, Alicent, try to kind of talk to him and converse with him. And then this is where we see him kind of take a little bit more power, and he like fully dismisses her, I believe, from the small council. So, basically, he's saying that, oh, you served this realm, honorably in the past with our father, and with, my father and whatnot. But basically your voice and, your opinion is no longer required. So you're, excused from, matters of the court. You could just go about your business and just do whatever. So obviously we see Alicent is a little bit hurt by this. And, we see from her point of view that this is her son just lashing out and, trying to right some wrongs that were done to him in the past. So we see this dynamic of obviously Alicent not being a very good mother. She wasn't very hands-on. It seems like the strongest connection that she has with her children is through her daughter Helena. So, we kind of return back to that episode when she's speaking to her brother, Sir Gawain, and he utters the line, whether or not it's just the atmosphere or the setting of King's Landing that makes children grow up improper, or if it's their mother, more that like nature and nurture type atmosphere. Oh, excuse me. So we see after the meeting concludes. Um, I'm trying to think if we see. Um, if we see anything else. Sorry, it's been a while since I've since I've seen the episode, so I'm having a little bit of trouble remembering it. But I mean, focusing on like the most important aspects of this episode, obviously is Aemon Targaryen and what he's doing. So we see that Team Green is a little bit in disarray. They put on a strong front, but they are a little bit in disarray. So obviously we have Aemon's trying to assert his own dominance and power when it comes to ruling King's Landing, as the regent. And we see other characters such as his mother get a little worried, based on his actions and whatnot. So I would say, as a whole, Team Green is a little bit in shambles. And kind of returning back to the Smallfolk is really the most, one of the most important things that happens this episode, at least when it comes to Team Green, is later on in the episode, where we see, the Smallfolk return, and we see, the Dowager Queen Alicent and her daughter Helena, go to, Faith of the Seven, temple, church, whatever you want to call it, to pray, whether it's for Aegon or just people that they've lost. And we see that there is a riot and a mob of small folk outside of the building, basically waiting to confront, the queen and the dowager queen. And we see that this escalation eventually becomes violent, and we see that the king's guard and some of her personal bodyguard are getting mobbed and swarmed by the small folk. And we see in like a little tense chase from the building to their carriage that the small folk were like hurling food and stuff at them. And we see that one of the king's guard or guards does slay a small folk or a citizen, which in turn just basically has them erupt into complete and utter violence. And we see that some of the King's Guard are like pummeled and beat, and most likely we assume that they're probably beat to death. Honestly, as like Alicent is trying to dissuade any violence, but we see that it escalates pretty fast, and we see that eventually they're able to make it to their carriage and make it back to the safety of the Red Keep. But we see that the reason why the small folk are starting to revolt and get a little angsty um, is because of what Team Black is doing, and then this is where we're going to pivot more to Team Black. So obviously, when it comes to Team Black, we do see that Rhaenyra is struggling a little bit. So we see that obviously a pivotal part of her counsel or her support was obviously taken off the board with Rhaenys during the Battle of Rook's Rest. We see that she put some plans in place. More recently, she sent her younger children to ward with her cousin, the Lady Jane Arryn, in the Vale. We see that she sent Rhaena, one of Daemon's daughters, with her, to protect some dragon eggs, as well as to protect her young children. And we see that, is it this episode or next episode? It might be next episode, I think, that we see it. But yeah, we see that she's struggling. She's still struggling with her small council and kind of getting their respect and authority over them. We're seeing some lines blurred and crossed. I think there's a scene where she slaps one of her small council members just because he won't shut up, and she's basically just getting very frustrated. So we see her in a way kind of like losing some allies at court, basically. Um, and we're seeing that she's trying to maintain that respect and authority amongst her council. And we see that because of this, the Lady Massaria is really the only ally in her court that she thinks that she has. And in this episode, we see them form more of a closer bond. They kind of cook up this plan, or Massaria cooks up this plan to kind of win over the small folk of King's Landing. which we'll talk about in a second. And we see them definitely get closer and, even more closer by the end of the episode. But that's basically kind of what's going on with Team Black. I don't really think anything prevalent happens in this episode when it comes to Damon. It seems like, the highlights are more on, Rhaenyra and back at Dragonstone. To probably sum up Damon's story in a nutshell, he's probably still hallucinating and dreaming, and yeah, he's still losing his mind, and he's going through this whole journey of um, more like kind of like correcting his like life's like past mistakes and like kind of like reliving every important moment in his life, and this is almost like a spiritual personal journey for him. Like, he has a goal when he gets down to Harrenhal. We think that he's going to turn on Rhaenyra and he's going to try to claim the throne for himself. But we see over time, he has these visions and he has these dreams, and we see him kind of conquer his past and rewrite a little bit of history in his own mind. And, we see him struggle, with his internal self. And that's really what's continuing to go on with Damon, down in Harrenhal, as he's also trying to support, gain the support of the River Lords and House Tully and amass the army. So we see that's what's going on with Damon still. Um, but returning back to Rhaenyra, really the most important thing in this episode is, like I said, the plan that is cooked up between her and the Lady Mysaria, as the Lady Mysaria understands that one way to win this conflict or this war is to gain the support of the population. Obviously, that doesn't just count for fantasy; that also counts for historical as well. You have the support of the people, more likely you're going to be able to support your own cause or win your own cause. Oh, excuse me. Um, so with this, they develop a plan. Basically, they know the people of King's Landing are starving, and we have the Lady Mysaria cook up a plan where Dragonstone sends some provisions, some food and supplies and whatnot, through Blackwater Bay over the King's Landing. And we see that obviously people are on the shore, trying to scrounge up whatever food they can, like fish and whatnot. And we see that there's a huge fleet of these small little vessels that basically come to the aid of King's Landing, and we see the civilians of King's Landing get all up in like an uproar and stuff like that, because we see that the Queen, or Queen Rhaenyra, is sending them food and provisions. So obviously everybody's freaking out about this. Everybody is like loving and favoring Queen Rhaenyra, and because of that love and support, it gets the small folk into a little bit of an uproar, and that is how we kind of come full circle when it comes to what happened with Alicent and Helena in that scene, as like people are just tired of King Aegon's rule and Prince Aemon's rule, and they are willing to support their queen. And we hear people shouting for Queen Rhaenyra. We see them holding her banner. So we definitely do see that there is a shift in support and popularity amongst the population of King's Landing. So not only do we see that as one of the most important events of the episode, but we also, like I said, we also see Rhaenyra and the Lady Mysaria get a little bit closer. And because Rhaenyra feels like Mysaria is one of her only allies at court, we see them get a little bit more emotionally connected as they start to kind of open up to each other and tell each other some personal things, which eventually leads to the scene of them kissing and making out a little bit, which was completely unexpected, to be honest, in my point of view. I'm kind of curious to see how they handle that storyline, going forward. I mean, hey, I mean, it's great, it's unexpected, but it's it's definitely nice to see Rhaenyra, have some happiness for a little bit. So I'm curious to see how they're going to play that storyline going forward. I wonder if they're going to maybe pursue something possibly romantically, even though she is, technically married to Damon and has children. But I wonder if, they're going to pursue that going forward, or maybe as if it like, never happens. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But we see that they do get closer in the episode, and we see that the scene is interrupted by one of her King's Guard, or I'm sorry, her Queen's Guard, coming in and stating that Sea Smoke has been sighted with a rider. And then this is basically how the episode ends, as we see Rhaenyra, mount Syrax and go to confront Sea Smoke and whoever is riding Sea Smoke. So I believe in this episode, this is also where we, kind of catch up with some of the Velaryons, and we see the tense relationship still between Corlys and his bastard children. And then this is also where we see, one of his children, Adam, actually be claimed by Sea Smoke instead of the other way around. So this is one of the first times in history that we've seen a dragon actually claim a rider versus, the other way around. So we see that, even though at the end of the episode, Rhaenyra doesn't know who it is, we know who it is. So we'll see that in episode 7. We'll discuss that a little bit more. We do know that Adam of Hall, which is Corlys's bastard son, does claim Sea Smoke, and he is the mysterious rider that the Queen's Guard labels at the end of the episode. Um, and really, the only other thing I really want to cover in this episode, to be honest, is what's going on with Rhaena in the Vale, because they kind of highlighted her a little bit more in this episode. So obviously, Rhaena is currently at ward, with some of her younger cousins and some dragon eggs. And we do find out that there is actually a full size like adult dragon in the Vale. It's a wild dragon known as Sheep Stealer. And Rhaena, for her whole entire life, obviously, has been kind of not ridiculed, but she's always felt a little bit different from other Targaryens as if because she doesn't have a dragon. So we see that, excuse me, not this episode, but we'll see it further in, episode 7 and episode 8, that she struggles with the idea of, either continuing her mission that Rhaenyra had imposed upon her, protecting her, because basically her goal was obviously to protect these dragon eggs, protect Rhaenyra's children. They were going to ward in the Vale for some time until they secured passage, and then they were going to go to Essos and stay in Essos until the conflict was over. So we see her kind of grapple with either finding her own personal identity and doing what she thinks is right for herself, or maintaining the mission that Rhaenyra entrusted upon her. So we see her kind of grapple with that, like, more individualistic wants versus like the greater good, I guess, so to speak. So like I said, we'll see that storyline continue in these next 2 episodes, but we do get a glimpse of it in this episode, obviously, as she does find out about the dragon. She confronts Lady Jane Arryn about it, and this is where the seeds of her plan possibly start to get planted and bear fruit. But other than that, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, like I said, I knew this was going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. There wasn't really too much that happens, but there were only really a few points to summarize. Like I said, the biggest thing to take away from this episode is the situation of the Smallfolk in King's Landing, and how the people of King's Landing are starting to sway their loyalties from King Aegon to Queen Rhaenyra. So we see that she's slowly starting to win the love and support of the population of King's Landing, which is going to work out in her favor if she ever wants to take King's Landing, which is great. We see that Rhaenyra and Mysaria's relationship grows and expands, in the face of possible disloyalty and chaos between Rhaenyra and her Black Council. Obviously, we see them get a little bit closer, romantically. So we'll see where that leads in the next couple of episodes and season 3. When it comes to Team Green, obviously, like I said, we see the Prince Regent Aemond try to take control of King's Landing in the situation, but we see that they are slowly losing the support of not only the population of King's Landing, but possibly their own family and their own court. So we're starting to see some divisions, some cracks there. And yeah, like I said, we have Rhaena trying to grapple with some personal choices when it comes to the Vale, and whether or not she's going to try to attempt to claim this wild dragon sheep stealer, and what that's going to mean for Rhaenyra's children and the dragon eggs. And then finally, obviously, we have Daemon's down in Harrenhal, still dealing with his personal crisis and choices, while also trying to gain the support of the River Lords and House Tully to amass their first standing army. So other than that, like I said, pretty solid episode. Because this is episode 6, excuse me. We'll have 2 episodes left, before the season ends. So we got 2 more episodes to cover. But like I said, we're starting to definitely see a little bit of a shift in the politics when it comes to this season, and it definitely looks like Team Black is starting to gain the upper hand after the losses that they procured. So again, winning the population of King's Landing and the Smallfolk is definitely a boon to their side, and obviously a loss to Team Green. So I would say at the end of this episode, I think Team Black is in a better standing, especially if Rhaenyra is able to have this mysterious rider of sea smoke, come to her side and be loyal to her cause. Um, but other than that, that is pretty much it, guys. Like I said, I would give it a solid 10 out of 10 suns. I think it's setting up, these last 2 episodes beautifully. And I'm really excited to jump on here and talk to you about it, and kind of pick your guys' brain and get your guys' reactions, because these last 2 episodes were really good. So I'm excited to talk about them and see where they lead. But again, thank you guys so much for coming and tuning in to another wonderful episode of Two Sons Podcast, where we talked about episode 6 of season 2 of House of the Dragon. So again, apologies for the little bit of a hiatus. Like I said, just dealing with some personal issues and moving up. I'm not moving to New York indefinitely. I'm just going up there for a little bit to kind of deal with some stuff. So I will be back in Florida, but I need to go up to New York for a couple of reasons. But yeah, I mean, so in a couple of weeks, you guys will see me in a brand new setting for a little bit, and yeah, it'll be fun. And like I said, hopefully, me and my brother can get together and maybe do some podcasts in person, or just get back together and do them entirely. He's doing pretty good, to be honest. He's just kind of figuring out his life. He started a brand new job, which he's absolutely loving and adoring. So he's just getting kind of used to that and getting settled in with that. So hopefully. He'll be willing to come back to the podcast and do a couple of episodes. We still got to finish up our, Disney Plus Star Wars Acolyte series for you guys. And then I know he saw Deadpool and Wolverine, so I still have to see it. So maybe, I'll see it and then we'll talk about it together. Obviously, D23 just happened recently, so there's a lot of news to talk about, for Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, Disney in general. So maybe we can cover an episode on that. And then, like I said, I want to do a Alien Romulus episode personally. So, depending on how that goes, and if that goes really well, I wouldn't mind doing like a deep dive into the Alien franchise and maybe going over like each movie and just kind of talking about it and whatnot. So, like I said, just let me know down in the comments below if you guys want to see any of these ideas, or if you have any suggestions yourself. But if you're wondering where you could find us for your viewing pleasure, you could find us on social media at Instagram, Twitter, no, I'm sorry, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, all under Two Sons Podcast. Again, those with an O, not a U, because we are two brothers. You could also find us on TikTok at Two Sons YouTube. And then you could also find us for your streaming or listening pleasure on Spotify, as well as YouTube, all under Two Sons Podcast. Again, that's with an O and not a U, because we are two brothers. You guys are probably gonna have a little bit better luck on YouTube because of what my brother's been going through. He's been a little late when uploading to Spotify. So if you guys want to listen and watch the episodes when they first come out, I would suggest going to the YouTube first and then go into Spotify. But yeah, like I said, you can find us on all of our socials there, where we'll post the episodes and keep you guys up to date on when they drop, and just our thoughts and opinions in general. And yeah, and then like I said, check out our Spotify and YouTube and whatnot for the episodes. Like I said, this episode, I plan on slating to release at the end of this week, maybe like Friday or Saturday, just so you guys kind of have like an episode to watch this week. And then I'm hoping as this week continues, I'll be able to put out a couple more episodes for next week and the following week, just so you guys have some content for the next couple of weeks, and I don't have to worry about, kind of going on a hiatus and leaving you guys all high and dry. But yeah, other than that, again, thank you guys so much for coming out to another episode of Two Sons Podcast. It has been my pleasure to sit and talk to you as always. So, like I said, just be on the lookout for that episode later this week. And yeah, until I see you guys again, I hope you have a great day, great morning, great afternoon, great evening, just a great day in general. Please be safe. Do not do anything stupid. For those of you that are returning back to school, good luck with your studies and school. Just keep at it, one day at a time. And yeah, I will see you all in the next episode. Goodbye for now.